Recently, a group of educators got together to discuss a serious issue in the state and in the upcoming election, the future of public education. We asked them what they want voters to know before walking into a voting booth. Here's what they had to say.
We just heard vouchers mentioned, and I'd like to address this fairly complex but extremely costly and especially divisive issue. For years, Republicans have been selling the message that our public schools are failing and school vouchers are the solution. Well, as an educator who's been around since vouchers started, I'm here to tell you that neither of those statements are true. Republicans might tell voters that we need vouchers because public schools are failing, but the data actually shows the opposite. Public school students perform at least as well, if not better, than voucher school students, especially in math. As for the Republican claim that taxpayer-funded private school vouchers are some sort of magic cure-all, I disagree. Vouchers were originally intended to be for a small number of low-income students in low-performing schools. But over time, Republicans have expanded the program until its original intent has been totally lost. And it's important to understand that the voucher program has always been funded with taxpayer dollars, and those dollars come directly out of the public school budget. When Republicans expand the voucher program, they don't add more dollars to the education budget to make up for the money that's going to private schools. They just rob public school Peter to pay private school Paul. In 2021, Brown County Public Schools alone lost more than $12 million in taxpayer money to private schools. It was over $500,000 in Door County and $250,000 in Kewaunee County. That's a whole lot of taxpayer money going to private schools that have no accountability to taxpayers and don't even have to provide the same range of services and supports as public schools.
Well, wait a second, I have to stop you here. So are you telling me that taxpayers are paying for kids to go to private schools? How did that happen?
I'd like to answer that. Republicans who were in the majority managed to pass a bill that completely removed enrollment limits and income caps from the voucher program. Every kid who wanted a voucher would be able to get one regardless of income. Republicans justified that bill by saying it would allow more low-income students in struggling schools to escape to better private schools. That simply is not true. According to the Department of Public Instruction, 73% of kids getting private school vouchers were already in private school when they entered the voucher program. This expansion of the voucher program wasn't about low-income kids escaping low-performing schools. It has always been the Republicans' goal to help more kids stay in their private schools and taxpayers picking up the tab. And even though Republicans sell themselves as fiscal conservatives looking out for the taxpayers, that pretty much goes out the window when it comes to expanding vouchers. Just this year, they passed a bill that allows school districts to raise taxes to cover the cost of private school vouchers. So instead of respecting the original limited intent of the voucher program, they decided to push ahead with expanding the program and then just left school districts to raise taxes to pay for it. Why are Republicans expecting taxpayers to fund two separate educational systems, one public and one private? And here's a really important point for voters to understand. As long as Democrats are in the minority in our state legislature, the only thing that is holding the voucher program in check is the veto power of the Democratic governor. Democrats are protecting taxpayers from a huge expansion of the voucher program that would devastate our public school budgets even more. They are protecting working families who are already paying taxes to fund public schools from also having to pay for private schools. And having said all this, I really want to be clear about something. Teachers support every family's choice to educate their children as they see fit. We just don't think tax dollars should be taken from public schools to fund private schools that aren't even required to meet the needs of all of their students and have no accountability to taxpayers for their actions or their performance like public schools. Public education funding is complicated and confusing, so at the end of the day, the question I would ask voters to think about is this: who can you trust on public education issues? The party that is taking money from our public schools, adding to our tax burden, and misrepresenting the value of the voucher plan, or the party that, even when it's not in the majority, does everything in its power to prioritize all student learning, support educators, and make sure your tax dollars are used wisely. Democrats champion students, teachers, and public schools. Republicans do not.
So then I just have one final question. Who are you voting for in November and why?
I'm voting for Democrats. They vote for us.